Hey, everybody. Welcome to Autism Confidential, the podcast from the National Council on Severe Autism. I am your host today. I am Jill Escher, and I am also president of NCSA. I think regular listeners may have noticed that we are not chiming in with new episodes every week. It's been just very busy. We are looking more like every 2 weeks, and then hopefully we'll get back into the every week mode. But for now, just forgive us. We are busy autism people. But today I am, I'm not going to say I'm happy to introduce this next subject or proud, but I feel it is our duty to cover the next subject. This one actually came up by a request from one of our listeners, and it's something that we've talked about quite a bit before at NCSA, because it's a big issue in autism families, and it is, drum roll please, fecal smearing and feces play and other terms for such matters. And today I'm very happy to be with two people who are both therapists, and they're both BCBAs who have worked with this severe autism population and are intimately familiar with how challenging, this can be. This is very, of all the things that come with severe autism, and I'm not saying this happens in every case, but it happens in many cases. It's extremely distressing on many levels to the individuals and the families involved. So addressing it is a big issue. So welcome Joyce Tu, Dr. Joyce Tu, and Dr. Kelly Bermingham. Hello.
Not doctor, just Kelly Bermingham.
Just Kelly Bermingham. Kelly Bermingham, you're a doctor to me.
Yeah.
Kelly also serves on the NCSA board, for which we're very grateful. They are both in Southern California, correct? Right, Dr. Tu? Right. And Dr. Tu has been leading the severe autism clinic as part of Easter Seals. In fact, you can see it if you're watching this on video. You can see her logo on the screen. So welcome, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with just a really basic question. In your experience, how common is it for your clients with autism to have an issue regarding inappropriate, shall I say, encounters with fecal matter?
Very often.
Yeah.
Right? Quite often, yeah. In all different type of forms too.
Right.
Yeah. Tell us about the forms. Let's get right into it.
Okay, well, since we're talking about this subject, so I'm just going to be very straightforward. So it could be, I think you have sent me the questions from one of your listeners that the student or the learner will reach into diaper or pants and then take out, quote unquote, Play-Doh and smear. We also seen the form of digging. Mm-hmm. So digging and then smear, or it's just, all different sort of forms. So these are sort of top two, I would say. And Kelly, have you seen other forms too? I mean, these are pretty severe.
They're pretty severe.
Yeah.
One other particularly unusual, I've actually seen it twice, where individuals actually stored their feces in containers. I had one who would store them under his bed, and it was super unusual. He was actually trying to watch. He was interested in the scientificness of it and how it changed, but it became a compulsion, so that every time that he, had a bowel movement, he had to scoop it out, hold it, and save it. And I knew another one who did it similar, but it was more in a way to upset family members. But in general, the two you described are the most common.
Most common, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also another thing to also add on to it is, most of the time when people think about severe autism, they have this profile of learners or participants who are non-vocal at all and will engage in these problems. But fun experience. I mean, even learners or participants who are vocal or verbal will engage in these type of behavior too. So it's common.
Right.
Yeah, it's very, I know, when my son was little, I have a son and a daughter with nonverbal autism. My son had this condition very transiently. He kind of did it a couple times and then it went away. And my daughter never did, thank goodness. But we have heard innumerable stories along the lines of, digging into the diaper, smearing it on their body, smearing it on their face, smearing it on their bed, smearing it on the wall, smearing it on the carpet. And it creates an immense burden in the home, not just to keep the child clean and safe, but the cleaning, the constant cleaning, the smell is very, very distressing for these families. So do you see that the behavior, and I realize every case is individual and different, do you tend to see the behavior decrease over time? What kind of patterns do you see longitudinally with these cases?
I think some participants, like you say, is it just a few episodes and then it just kind of, diminish over time. But some actually becomes more severe, and to the point that initially it may be just fecal smearing or, digging at the anal area, but it really is the individual difference, right? But I do see a percentage of them developing what we call encopresis. So it's kind of maybe the consequences of what happened after the fecal smearing, or
define
maybe
encopresis for our audience that doesn't know.
Sure, yes. So encopresis is it's a condition which the individual holds their bowels or urine, mostly bowel movement, for a long period of time. It becomes a chronic condition that maybe initially it's more constipation, but over time, because they hold it for so long that liquids may be seeping out from the anal gland area, or in some cases that the condition was so severe, it's pressing on the organs inside of the person that they no longer can have the sensation or feel or in that regard, right? So that's encopresis. So what we see is over time, maybe the consequences, or maybe they're just some sort of underlying medical condition that will lead to more severe cases like encopresis.
So these cases, when you intervene, right? That you're coming in usually as part of an ABA program, I imagine, or
Right.
do you do inpatient work? Or is it just in-home ABA?
So we do outpatient. So and most of our participants are in clinic, or their program will start in clinic. And then we, once we get a good instruction and control, then we may gradually move them back in home. Or sometimes they have both in clinic and in home in combination.
Okay, so let's say you're in the clinic and this is one of your goals, right? To diminish these behaviors. Tell us some of the strategies that you use.
So there's really no big secret, really no big secret. It's like Kelly actually mentioned earlier, it really depending on the person, what is the reason, what's the function of that behavior. So we always start with a functional behavior assessment, and to really see, okay, is this behavior really to get somebody's reaction? Or is it a lot of time it may be just because there is that underlying medical condition. And so in those cases, we do a lot of collaboration with other professionals. And you have to work in collaboration with other professionals. For example, the GI doctors, you have to work very closely with them. We have to work really closely sometimes with dietitians and with OT to have a very comprehensive plan to address this issue. So let me give you an example. One of a very severe case that we do work with, we actually have to, the condition have gotten so bad, it becomes encopresis, and the participant has more than 10 years of history with this problem. So initially we have to do an assessment, and we notice that he can no longer control his bowel. So we work really closely with GI to get him admitted to the medical center or to a hospital to clean out. So they will have these clean out procedure that they have to do. And once they get cleaned out, we immediately see this person in clinic or in the home. Actually, in this case, we do see him in the home. And we just start very rigorous toilet training process. And so that's what I'm saying. If there's no big secret. It's all about going back to basics. Let's go back to take a look at the toilet training process and take a look at if we can just start new with the person.
So for the toilet training process, I realize it's individual, so there's probably not one answer, but is it generally, putting the child on the toilet on a regular schedule, like every 30 minutes until, they become accustomed to that action, or how do you do it?
Yes. So toilet training it's difficult in a way, because, it is something what we call private events, meaning that this is something that only the person who can feel, what is going on within him or herself. So it's hard for us to see from the outside, because if you look at typical aggression, you can see the trigger in the environment. So that once we can see and do a careful observation, we see the triggers, and then we can do that. We can manipulate whatever it is in there. So because we can't really see when this person have to go, so what we have to do then is to be able to manipulate some of the things that we can do from the outside, that we can really do a good prediction when this person have to go, meaning that it's taking this person every 30 minutes, but what's very important is what is this person drinking and what is this person eating in between those 30-minute intervals, right? Kelly, it sounded like you have something you wanted to add too.
No, I was just saying I was just agreeing, because one of the challenges when there's a schedule is if there isn't an opportunity to have to go to the bath, right? You urinate or have a bowel movement. And so you have to create the scenario where the body actually has to have a bowel movement.
Right.
And sometimes that gets missed in like your standard toilet training programs, because people aren't looking at that. And the other thing I'll just add is, and I know that Dr. Tu does this, you can also look at the data, right? Like I can think of an individual right now who very consistently, if he's going to have a bowel movement, you get a time frame around when it likely might happen. And so, data and then creating the opportunities to have to go are crucial in these programs.
Right. Exactly. So that initial assessment, a lot of time I do hear from parents, gosh, we wanted to start this program so soon, so that yesterday, right? But we have to be very clear, like we need at least a month of the time to collect to do our assessment, because the data that what Kelly was saying, why I wanted to find out a pattern. I needed to know when does this person have to go, especially with that movement. And so the patterns could be, like Kelly was saying earlier, it could be between 5 to 7 at night, so and that is going to take a consistent observation to get that consistent pattern. Or sometimes we may even get patterns how long after so-and-so eats something, and what is it that they were eating and then immediately after. So a lot of time we do also find patterns. It may not be between this time to this time, but we do find patterns as long as this person consistently have a meal or 3 meals during the day, that we know when the bowel movement is going to come.
So really, if I can kind of do a little analysis here, what you're saying is it's important to get them out of diapers, and it's important to get them not to retain their stool, right. And that's the first step to kind of stopping the smearing, and the play, right, with the stools. So okay, now so if they're in diapers, all they have to do is reach in, get the stools, and start playing with it. And so getting them trained would be important. But even if some people are potty trained, do they still have this problem even after they're trained?
Right. So if they are trained, then yeah, they have a problem. So the problem could be, something like Kelly, you were saying that earlier. It could be, I just want to collect it. I want to see what that looks like, and over time. But if the person is toilet trained and that then that's where the assessment is to find out, well, why are you doing this? It's
well, tell me. I mean, this seems to be like the most perplexing thing, right? Like, of all things you could do with your time, why choose this? And I realize that many of our children are very severely cognitively impaired, and basically their whole world is their body, because they don't have a cognitive mechanism for dealing with things outside of their body, right? And so if something weird is happening, something's coming out of their body, that's something that's extremely salient to them, right? Where something happening on the TV is not. But like, what are, in your experience, what are some of the functions served by this?
Well, quite a lot of time, I have to say, is that there's not a very structured schedule during a person's day, and that doing something like that takes time. It occupies this person's time, and if you see, and I appreciate you use that. A lot of time our this particular population was so severely impacted that they may also lack skills, not just in communication, but lacking skills in leisure and play, and lacking skills that, that's what a lot, if you look at typical developing children, when mommy is busy cooking, go do something. There's options, right? So they go watch TV, playing games, or I don't know, getting in fights with their siblings.
Right.
That's common. That's what kids do. And so if we're looking at this population, we focus so much on communication. Maybe we focus so much on self-help, but maybe sometimes the clinician just not really looking to, hey, play is a big part of it. Play and doing something on my own when mom is busy. It's important, so that when I can engage in these other activity, I don't no longer really need to play with my feces. And so that's one, right? That's one function. But like I say, every individual engaged in this behavior could have different functions. So if the function is to, I just want to get you mad, I want you to pay attention to me, then yeah, there's obviously I'm sure it's very straightforward,
I've definitely seen cases where, the kid is just very oppositional. And this is part of the expression of that oppositionality. It's a really unfortunate expression.
There may also not be that social stigma, right? If a lot of our clients in this population don't have the social stigma aspect of, like, you don't do that, right? Then there's also sometimes I always call inadvertent smearing, where the smearing may not be as intentional as everyone thinks. The smearing may be more to do with how I clean myself and my skills and how I have it. And so, so it's on my hand, and I reach for the toilet paper, but I get it on the holder, and then I get it on the wall, and then I don't get it all off my hand, so it's on the sink. And so
Right.
now it's on my hand. I want to get it off, so I
Right.
wipe it on the wall to get it
Right.
off rather than wash and use a towel. So that's another, when we're looking at function or reasons why someone might smear, it's sort of like an unintentional smear, I call it.
Right. Right. And these are fun cases, really, like in our world. It's, you
Right.
don't know how to wipe. This is we have a great program,
Right.
that just teach you how to wipe. And then again, is if those are the cases, if it's outside the toilet training and the scenarios that Kelly was given, or what I was talking about earlier, then we don't have to wait until a person have a bowel movement to teach its skills. These type of opportunities can be provided throughout the day, so that the person just, I think somebody was mentioned before, maybe Peter Gerhardt talked about it before. He was saying, why is it that when people do discrete trial, you would do like 1,000, 2,000 trials for one skills, but things like this that teach a person how to wipe, you only do once a day.
Right.
It's not more important. That's just, do more try it. Let's do more of these more appropriate functional skills throughout a day.
Well, one thing I hear a lot from families is how hard it is to teach them to wipe properly. That is actually a very, very hard one for families. I don't know if that's been your experience, even when they're quote unquote potty trained, just getting them to do it 100% alone is really proving to be very impossible for a lot of families, even ones who've been through a lot of therapy and intervention. So
it's hard, because then how much of toilet paper you're supposed to use, right? That's
something like that.
And how do you fold it up, right? Instead of crunching it up together, and then it's hard. And then when do you stop? That's also right.
Right. Definitely a challenge. So let me ask you this. So these parents sometimes, come to us with these issues around their kids when their kids are teens or early 20s, and they still, aren't potty trained.
Yeah.
And the parents basically have given up because they have tried everything. They have been through ABA, they've been through special ed, they've been through OT, and like nothing has worked. And I have to say, it's one of the most really excruciating things for these families to deal with a large person who's still in diapers. Regardless of the smearing issues.
Right.
What do you do with those people? I assume you usually work with kids, but now these are teens, young adults, and it's just exponentially harder for their families.
Yeah, it is definitely a specialty, right? But I do have to tell you, I think maybe only 2% of our participants are kids. I think the 98% of our participants are teens and young adults.
In our clinic.
Oh, then I stand corrected. Sorry.
Yeah. So no, you're fine. You're correct. Totally fine. And yet it is hard. And it really is. We do have really dedicated staff who are, and a lot of times they're 2-to-1 ratio, not 1-to-1. Some of them go as high as 3-to-1, 4-to-1, just due to the nature of they're getting bigger too. Like you say, it's straightforward. It is hard to when somebody who's that big invites you to go to the bathroom, but I'm a behavior analyst, and I can only tell you my best friends are these positive reinforcers, have something that's useful. The individuals that I was telling you earlier was an adult and we had encopresis. We had to work really closely with the GI and to get him re-potty trained. We use, things that are appropriate, Wi-Fi time. If you go to the bathroom, you earn, 20 minutes of Wi-Fi time, and you can do whatever you like. That was his free time that he earned. So, and that's I'm not saying simple, but the most parsimonious way that we were able to motivate a person to do that. And maybe the wiping part of it has to be taught separately than the toilet training. So the toilet training, maybe the staff would just have to help the person to wipe, but during the day, then we're doing the wiping exercise.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Just the wiping is sort of secondary. Just getting them
right.
out of diapers
right.
is just priority number one for
Right.
many autism families.
Right. And I have to say, sorry, I just really, I don't want to forget. I do have to say, with younger children, when we see the fecal smearing, sometimes we also see what in combination with that is they will hide. So
Yes.
they will hide. So they ask for, maybe they're potty trained already, but they will ask for a diaper and they will hide in the closet to go. So that's very common. We do see that quite common too. So that is a whole other process itself. That the initial process is, you know what, let's get you out of the closet, even if you need to go in your diaper, standing, whatever, it's fine. Just let me be around, because if I'm around, then I can provide reinforcements when you perform the skills that we need you to perform. So that's also something else I just don't want to forget. I want to add it in.
So if a parent is in this position and they're really, desperate for help, would they, this is a technical question, would they use their insurance to hire an ABA company like yours? Not all ABA companies, I think, like dealing with this particular population, I have to be honest. But would they go to their insurance? Would they go, like in California, to the regional center? Like where would they go to get an intensive program, right, like yours, to work on this? Because not everybody has access to your Easter Seals clinic.
Yeah, so I mean, it's insurance. You hit it right on, insurance. And again, this is, we're looking at this is definitely medically necessary for the family to get these services. And that regional center also here, I mean, it's one of big things too, toilet training, right? Anything that have to do with toileting is under regional center as well. I can't really speak for school, because just a lot of times, some schools will address that, but it's very important. I think also it's probably a technical question or technical statement suggestion. There is a very long and a long history old book by Fox and Azrian. It's called Toilet Training in a Day, right? And I do see sometimes maybe more not younger, but maybe greener BCBAs may not really have that in their back pocket. So I would even suggest, even with BCBAs, check that out. And since then,
say check that out, the
toilet
training in a day.
Yeah, in a day, check it out, because that's all we learn. That's how we learn about toilet training. And I think since then there are tons of research in this area. That particular program, that a lot of people have made new modifications to really, based on the science and based on what we see in the field.
I do coursework for Site Pro, a company, and there is a recorded webinar on there on toilet training. And it is a beginner class for BCBAs who've never done it in toilet training, and it's based off that book, Toilet Training in a Day. Yeah, in a Day. It's based off that book, but parents can also access that course.
Well, if you guys can send me links, we can put it in the show notes, and people can find them, and any other resources that you think could be helpful to them. So we're nearing the end of our time, but let's end on a happy note. Why don't you share with us just a success story or two, something that really worked and helped your clients
on this particular issue?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think we I remember a long time ago, this little girl, and she was 7 at the time, and she has the same issue. And she hides, like I say, she'll hide and she'll ask for a diaper. And that was the last thing that prohibited her from going to regular ed, because of toileting. And so mom is definitely was very, very motivated. And so we start this particular program that was a toilet training, and we have her get used to us around her, and she still wear her diaper. So the process being, she will have her diaper, will be around, and then we start having her wearing the diaper and sitting on the toilet when she have to go. And over time, when she's getting pretty comfortable with that, then we start cutting the diaper. So the diaper from the bottom of the diaper, we start cutting the diaper. And I just remember, and this takes time. I'm not saying this is like miracle that will happen tomorrow, but this takes time. I think it took us 8 to 9 months. And finally she have just like little just straps like around her from the diaper, because we cut it so much just around. And she was looking at us saying, there's no more, you can't cut anymore. And we're like, well then, hey, just give it up. and she did. And so because of that, then she was totally fine, totally trained, no more issues. And she was able to go to regular ed for her. So
Wow.
It is possible. And
Well, it was creative, you got to hand it to these behavior therapists who are in there cutting diapers. I mean, that's real work. That's hard work. Oh, by the way, our one of our board members, when we brought up this topic recently, one thing that she recommends for her patients is kind of like a one piece, almost like a swimsuit kind of material thing that the kids can wear at night. So think of like the Olympic swimmers in those swimsuits with the full legs, kind of like that. And so the kid really can't get in right to their pants with their hands. And it doesn't help with necessarily toilet training, but it will help with the smearing part, which is really, as we know, just so very, very difficult and awful for the parents to deal with. And so that's sort of, I think, a stopgap measure. I know I've known parents would put them in overalls every day, any kind of clothes to keep their hands away from their crotches, basically. And this is the sort of extreme version of that.
It's a good prevention plan, I think, for putting an overall and the swimsuit, but to address the behavior when it occurs, that still needs to be planned. Yeah, that's what I would.
It's definitely not a full response,
full
but it's sort of as a stopgap measure.
So I think it's important that they're sort of like separate but related issues, right? So fecal smearing can occur either because of not being potty trained or having bowel movements. It can also occur even if they're potty trained and having bowel in the toilet. And so families should spend some time analyzing that with, if they can access BCBA or an ABA or read or look up a book, but you have to sort of separate, like, is fecal smearing related to the bowel movement or not, right? And then you kind of go through your decision tree. Analyzing that, sometimes smearing, like I said, is inadvertent or unintentional, and it's just a cleaning issue. Sometimes it's smearing because, like Dr. Tu said, I'm occupying myself. Sometimes it's related to I'm constipated, right? And I'm digging to try to get it out, and it stimulates a movement. And then after I do that, I wipe it on something. And so, it's an analysis like everything else.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time and talking about this very difficult but super urgent issue. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get this podcast up in a week or two. Any closing words before we go?
I don't know.
Good luck, family.
That was a good one.
Yep.
Good luck. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. It was
Thank
great to meet
you.
you, Dr. Tu.
Great meeting you.
Okay.
Jill.
Bye, Kelly.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Autism Confidential. If you'd like to learn more, share an idea for an episode, or become a sponsor, please visit us at autismconfidential.org. The views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individual speakers. Content presented is for informational purposes only, and we do not provide any medical or legal advice.